Hello and welcome to episode 6 of this podcast. So we are talking about Black History Month and saluting our sisters as the theme for October 2023. This obviously is part of the Golden Thread podcast that the Nottinghamshire Alliance Training Hub host. I'm your host, Dr. Errum Mumtaz. In this episode, we'll be talking about being kindly curious, being as accessible as possible and keeping the conversation going, so ensuring that there are no questions that are stupid questions, but also when you probe about culture and diversity, that when it's in the guise of being kindly curious, it's usually met with a positive answer. And we hope that this will help you address some of the issues that maybe you are curious about, but always felt a little bit uncomfortable asking. So without further ado, let's start.
You mentioned earlier, Elizabeth, you mentioned earlier about, terminology. And people sometimes are so scared of terminology that they kind of think, it's easy just not to have that conversation.
Exactly.
And I find that I try and make myself as accessible as possible because I'm like, no, let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it. Let me, as Lucy said, let me, it's not educating in a
Didactic way, is it? No.
Exactly. But it's just, let's be open. And, and there might be some terms that I use that are incorrect. There might be some terms that you use that are incorrect, but actually we're being kindly curious. And so I will let things go just like you will let things go. But let's, at the end of this conversation, let there be a positive message and let us both learn something from each other. And I think I've always almost felt as if that was a responsibility on me. It comes with that being a woman of color, that you feel as if actually I have a duty to ensure that I can have those conversations and I am accessible because you're representing something bigger and wider than yourselves. So yeah, kind of that basically what, Lucy, what you said is it's so important, isn't it, in our roles of and seeing it as a privilege as opposed to a burden. I think that's the other thing. Of saying, well, actually, no, we got here, we are here. Let's celebrate that. Let's show ourselves as and let's sometimes not even about the recognition, but actually just know that I'm here. it's it's not about recognition of, oh, you're doing a great job. No, I know I'm doing a great job, but see me. I think that's the other part of it. So sorry, I interrupted Lucy. So
No.
Idah, Hashiat, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say just being available, because I think it's very important. There's always the stereotype, young Black mothers, was probably single parent. I've had someone say to me, "Oh, you're not wearing your ring. Are you single, mom?" I'm like, "No, actually, I've lost some weight and my ring won't fit." That's the reason why I'm not wearing my ring. But yeah, there's always that assumption that, being a Black woman, you're a single mom, you're struggling, you're not available, you've got kids, you've got to be doing all sorts of things. But that's not always the case. That's just stereotype that people have. But I think what helps as well is just being available, because I find myself, if there's anything that's needed, my hand is always up. I'm always one of those mental health practitioners who say, yeah, I'll give it a go. I'll go, I'll be an advocate, because I believe that that's when my voice will be heard. And that's when you educate both ways. I'm getting educated, you are getting educated by my experience and my journey. And it's very important to always be there, the presence. I find myself, I'm always walking around, like if I have a client and they don't turn up, I'm walking the surgery saying, hello, you're all right, just getting to see how people's well-being are, so they know that I am there, I'm visible. So I think that's quite important, because whilst you were talking, I was just reflecting in one of the trusts that I used to work with during sort of the pandemic. That was the only opportunity that we actually had quite a similar sort of platform where people spoke about how they felt as Black people and people of minority. And I remember at that point, I raised my hand. I said, well, I actually self-funded myself to do my master's because the trust said there wasn't sufficient funds. So I did it on my own, and I'm using those skills, and those skills you know, they're well received, but I haven't been acknowledged nor reimbursed, you know, for the money that I put in. And I think at that point, that was the only point where they actually looked at it, and actually I got my reimbursement, which was great, but it didn't have to take lockdown for that to happen. So I think conversations like this are so important to keep going, because that's when we know we can resolve some of these silent political issues that happen that nobody's willing to talk about. But we should be talking about them. And I'm quite happy to talk about it with my patients because, you know, I'll give you an example. One of my patients says, you know, I can't get a doctor's appointment. It's all these people from different countries coming in and clogging up the system. And I'm like, well, can I just stop you there? I'm actually one of them. I'm a Black person. Yeah, but not you. So that statement again, not you. I didn't mean you. And I'm like, no, actually, you know, we are different, white at first. And, you know, we all contribute to the system one way or another. So everyone is entitled to their health system. And it's about educating that person. And I've found I spent quite a lot of time really educating them, and I put that in their notes as well, you know, so they can read just in case they forget, so they can read, and the GPs are aware that, yes, we can talk about these things quite openly, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. So, yeah, I believe that we should always be available and be seen.
I think, Hashiat, you mentioned your fellowship that you're doing that's focusing specifically on IMGs and differential attainment, and I think this whole conversation really is kind of feeds into that, doesn't it? And I mean, have you already started your fellowship, or is it something that you're doing?
I have started in post. I started in August, so I'm just a few months in. And I've done most of the, I think, fact finding in the first couple of months. And then now I'm starting to do some of the projects I'm hoping to work with. And I've got some, I think it's opened my eyes a lot to what's going on and what everyone's perspective is sometimes. I've noticed that on one end, some of the IMGs think like we've got the short end of the straw, and we've got like shortchanged, and we've got all the like negatives from our end. But I've learned over time that there's a lot of positivity they bring into the system, and there's a lot of experience they bring in, and there's a lot they have to offer. And it's just getting them to understand it, and the imposter syndrome, realizing you did have something to offer. That's why you're here, and you're quite bringing in that much tangible sort of input into the system. A lot of them have got years of experience where they're coming from. They've got experiences with certain conditions that they're not familiar with here. And they have, like, I would say, cultural experience as well, because they can bring that perspective when it comes to language, when it comes to like understanding why the patient is the way they are. Because I mean, they've met those kinds of patients in the past, or they sort of can relate to their family members. So they bring that in. And then on the other side, which is sometimes coming from the trainers here as well, who are sometimes local grad, being trained in the UK, never been anywhere else, or never had a reason to sort of practice somewhere else. They sometimes see it as, it's a hard thing trying to work with an IMG who doesn't know anything about the NHS system, where I have to teach all this and teach all that. But then if only sometimes they could sort of look at it and see, all they need is a little bit more support, and they would really bloom. And see that they just need to put in a little bit more effort. And one thing I've said about people is we humans don't want to disappoint anyone who's sort of supporting us. So if we see someone who's supporting, we put more work because we're like, oh no, I don't want to disappoint them. They like expect so much of me. So you want to put in that. And sometimes if you're able to just sit them down, ask a couple more questions, get to know a little bit about them, you can understand their struggles a bit more, and you sort of don't get blindsided by some end of things. And then you can realize, oh, this person is actually doing good enough. It's just being, I think, distracted by this. And then if you can signpost them to maybe, oh, reach out to this person, they can help you. And then before you know it, they bloom really quickly. And I think it's just that dynamic that's in the works now. And I'm doing a little bit about, I think, the reverse mentoring that Lucy was talking about. I'm hoping to start that. Still really, really in the early side of things, trying to get materials and stuff to work, seeing how that can sort of help the trainers get the perspective of the IMGs coming in and understand what ways you can help and stuff. I think it's been a really good experience so far, getting to meet people who like from different works of life, different experiences. And from my end as well, my experience over time is seeing how things are. I would say I've been a bit lucky with training. I haven't had that many problems, But definitely, I would say it's a big thanks to some of the supportive network I've got around me. And if only people could get something similar, I think almost everyone will really thrive. And for the sake of the patients as well, I mean, these people are bringing lots of experiences. They're bringing lots of I think a big, stronger clinical acumen, because some of them have worked in places where they don't have all the investigative resources. So they've had to use the knowledge, the eye to catch things, and bringing that in will definitely, I think, save the NHS some money, some time, and then help the patients get the help they need real quickly without needing sort of extra support. I think one of the things that's helped me with is my patients as well. I've sort of learned a bit of perspective into how the primary care system works, and it's heavily burdened. You've got a short time to listen to lots of people with different problems, and you have to deal with it really quickly. So sometimes you tend to have very low empathy, and you want to churn them out real fast, because that's literally what the system is making us do. But then having that few seconds to think again and see, maybe this person won't come across someone else who will listen to them like I would, probably sparing a little bit more time and getting what they really want will probably solve more appointments. They won't have to keep coming back, and they probably get that answer that time. I think it helps to understand that, and hopefully it does get better and things do improve. But yeah, it's been interesting. Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of episode 6. So being kindly curious. I hope that you learn what that means, but also that you can enact that as you go forward in your workplace. We've talked a lot about culture change, and a part of the culture change is better understanding of diversity. So if there's a take-home message, it's saying be kindly curious, and hopefully you'll get a better understanding of your colleagues around you, and that will make the work environment much better for you and for them. So yes, I hope you join us for the last episode 7, where we'll be talking about what we've been doing to celebrate diversity within diversity. I'll see you then.